Chronicon Mundi.
Dive deep into history.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. For centuries, European cartographers, and really philosophers too, they were haunted by this ghost on the map.
A huge, unknown landmass called Terra Australis Incognita.
Exactly. And it wasn't just a geographical theory, was it? It sort of underpinned everything. Geopolitics, commerce for well over 200 years.
It was the ultimate geographical quest, the final frontier of their world.
And today, that's what we're doing. We're tracing the mission that finally put that ghost to rest.
We are plunging into James Cook's second voyage, the epic, grueling 3-year circumnavigation that ran from 1772 to 1775.
This wasn't just another voyage of discovery, though. This was a mission to end a philosophical argument with hard, cold, definitive proof.
That's right. The Admiralty's mandate was, crystal clear.
Which was?
Sail south, find the southern continent. Or, and this is the crucial part, prove once and for all that it just did not exist in those temperate zones where everyone believed it was hiding immense wealth.
A myth-busting expedition, essentially.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And to tackle this enormous undertaking, Cook needed very specific kinds of ships, not your traditional deep draft warships.
You need something tough.
Exactly. He was given 2 vessels, both of them sturdy Whitby-built colliers, which means they were designed to haul.
Coal, right, along the rough English coast. So they were robust and had a shallow draft.
Precisely. Just like the Endeavour from the first voyage, they were even built by the same man, a Mr. Fishburne.
So what were the ships?
Cook commanded the flagship, Resolution, which was 462 tons, a huge capacity for stores. And the accompanying vessel was the Adventure, smaller at 336 tons, captained by Tobias Furneaux.
And the preparation for this voyage was different.
Oh, completely different. It was remarkable. The Admiralty, they'd clearly learned some hard lessons from the first trip. They threw immense resources at it.
What do the sources say?
They indicate that every single department, from the Controller of the Navy to the Victualling Board, seemed to, and I'm quoting here, vie with each other in equipping these 2 sloops.
Wow, so the different bureaucratic arms of the Royal Navy were actually competing to see who could stock the ships better. That's amazing.
It is. And in practical terms, it meant they basically just dismissed standard procedure.
Threw the rule book out.
They explicitly dispensed with, or, set aside, every standing rule and order in the Navy, all in their haste and ambition for this mission.
And that allowed them to do what, exactly? Stock more anti-scurvy provisions.
Yes, and carry redundant equipment. But, crucially, it was also to try and accommodate an enormous scientific team.
Led by the most famous man in British science at the time.
Sir Joseph Banks.
Which brings us to this dramatic pre-launch scandal that, it almost sank the whole mission before it even left the docks.
It really did. Banks, fresh off the glory of the Endeavour voyage, wanted a repeat performance, but let's just say a more luxurious one.
A luxury performance is putting it mildly.
He planned to bring a huge entourage. This wasn't just a few scientists. He was bringing Dr. James Lind, the Artizophony, and even 2 horn players for onboard entertainment.
2 horn players in the Antarctic.
Can you imagine? Banks was incredibly wealthy and influential, and he even got a parliamentary grant of £4,000 for his personal preparations, which was a staggering sum.
So to house all this prestige and equipment, they started refitting the Resolution to Banks's very specific demands.
And it turned the ship into a floating palace, but a dangerously unstable one.
How so?
To get the height and space Banks wanted, they built all these superstructures on the upper deck, including a new roundhouse. When the ship left the dock, it was just dangerously overladen. It was top-heavy.
A death trap in the Southern Ocean.
Absolutely. Cook, along with his patron Admiral Palliser, they saw it immediately. They recognized the fundamental danger.
And Cook, being Cook, the pragmatist, insisted on safety over comfort. That must have been a huge political gamble, given Banks's influence.
It was a monumental risk. Banks was a scientific celebrity, a friend of the king. But Cook's commitment to his crew's safety and, the success of the actual mission, it trumped all of that court politics.
So he stood his ground.
He stood firm. He demanded the removal of all the new, unsafe decking and structures. And the scene when Banks finally arrived to see the result, it's legendary.
The moment of truth at Sheerness.
Midshipman Elliot recorded the whole thing, the explosion of rage. When Banks arrived and saw that his custom accommodation, paid for with public funds, had been torn out and the ship returned to its functional, safe form. He was just utterly enraged.
What did he do?
Elliot wrote that Banks swore and stamped upon the wharf like a madman. And he immediately withdrew himself, his entire team, all his equipment.
And the poor horn players.
The horn players, the artists, all of it. He just stormed off. It's a perfect illustration of Cook's priorities. The mission and the crew always came first.
So with the flamboyant Banks gone, who stepped in to handle the science?
The Royal Society had to scramble. They recommended Johann Reinhold Forster, an expert in natural history, and his son George Forster, who became the primary artist and a chronicler.
Unnecessary replacement, maybe not an easy one.
Let's just say they were known for being a bit difficult. They were later supplemented at the Cape of Good Hope by a Swedish botanist, Mr. Sparman. But really, the most crucial scientific addition wasn't a person at all.
Yeah, it was technology.
It was technology, the marine chronometers.
Now, how revolutionary were these timekeepers really on this voyage? Weren't they still in a very early experimental phase?
They were, but they were potentially world-changing. The chronometer was the long-sought-after solution to the longitude problem,
which had claimed thousands and thousands of lives.
Most notoriously in the Scilly Isles disaster back in 1707. The quest for accurate longitude was, the technical equivalent of the quest for Terra Australis Incognita. It was a puzzle that had stumped the greatest minds for centuries.
And what specific models did Cook carry?
He had two main types. One was the Kendall No. 4, which was a direct replica of John Harrison's famous H4.
The holy grail of timekeepers.
Pretty much. And then he also had Arnold timekeepers, which were a different design. Cook meticulously monitored them both. He had to know if they could be relied upon over a 3-year voyage in, extreme temperatures.
He still had his traditional methods to fall back on, though.
Oh, absolutely. His primary reliance was still on his astronomical observations, the lunar distance method. But the chronometers, they offered a potential shortcut that could save countless hours and reduce error.
So before they head into those roaring latitudes, they needed to stock up. First stop, Madeira.
Right, Funchal Harbor, July 29, 1772. Cook was obsessed with provisions that promoted health. It wasn't just about fresh meat and wine.
What did he get?
He purchased a truly staggering quantity of onions, 1,000 bunches.
1,000 bunches of onions, why?
It wasn't arbitrary. He believed they were, and I quote, very beneficial for the crew's health. It might have been their acidic nature, or just the simple fact that they were fresh, non-preserved vegetables. It was all part of his evolving, though still, imperfect anti-scurvy regimen.
And from there, on to the Cape of Good Hope in November.
The Cape was the final jumping-off point, essential for final provisioning, but critically for testing the chronometers against a known astronomical position.
The moment of truth for the new tech.
And the initial results were fascinating. Kendall's No. 4 watch performed, in Cook's words, beyond all expectation. It proved incredibly reliable.
And Arnold's?
Arnold's, on the other hand, was found to lose time significantly. This confirmed for Cook that the concept of the chronometer was valid, but only if the mechanism itself was of impeccable quality.
So Kendall's was the winner.
By a long shot. Cook would later deem the marine chronometer a reliable guide to navigation, but only after it proved its worth over years at sea. And with their new botanist, Sparman, aboard, they finally left the known world behind.
So once they left the Cape, the mandate was absolutely strict.
No deviation. Sailed to 60 degrees south latitude, the zone where many cartographers believed the southern continent must exist.
And there was another objective too, right?
Yes. To verify a previous sighting of land made by the French explorer Bouvet. He'd called it Cape Circumcision, but his longitude was hazy. Cook had to find it.
And this mandate drove them headlong into the worst weather you can possibly imagine.
By late 1772 and into early 1773, they were deep in the high southern latitudes. The sources, all the logbooks, they just fill up with descriptions of the cold, the gales, the perpetual sleet and fog. It just hit them like a wall.
What were the practical measures for keeping an 18th century crew alive, let alone functioning, in that kind of sustained extreme cold?
Well, it was a combination of specialized gear and a bit of psychological boosting.
What kind of gear are we talking about?
They were issued heavy-duty cold weather clothing, fear not jackets and trousers.
Fear not? What's that?
It's a thick, really durable woolen cloth, almost like felt. It was designed specifically to withstand sea spray and keep heat in. They also had caps made of canvas and baize.
And the psychological boost.
Cook noted that this gear, coupled with the crucial addition of an additional glass of brandy every morning, enabled the men to, quote, bear the cold without flinching.
More morning brandy. That must have been a critical morale boost.
Oh, absolutely. A survival tool.
Uh-huh.
But the constant lurking danger, the real ghost of these long voyages, remains scurvy.
Cook had learned so much from his first trip, but he was still battling this disease, wasn't he?
It was still very much a trial and error phase, and a lot of it was guided by, well, false theories. He was dedicated to prevention, using things like wort made from malt.
What's that?
It's a fermented substance he thought contained crucial acids, and also something called rob, which was a concentrated lemon and orange juice.
So he had the right idea with the citrus, but the concentration process probably destroyed the vitamin C.
Exactly, so the results were all over the place. He was careful to record that while he gave the malt wort to people showing symptoms, one sailor, despite taking the rob for some time past, saw no benefit and became highly scorbutic.
But it worked for others.
Well, on the adventure, they recorded 2 men who were apparently cured by using it. It just underscores that even with the best intentions and the latest medicine, the true solution wasn't yet fully understood.
It was a puzzle. They were fighting a ghost with these conflicting remedies.
Well, but another crucial bit of ingenuity in this environment was just getting fresh water, which in the open ocean can be even scarcer than food.
And they solved that problem by using the ice itself.
It was a stroke of genius, a huge time saver. On January 9th, 10th, and 12th, they would just harvest these floating ice islands.
How did they do that?
They'd lower the ship's boats, collect large, clean pieces of blue or white ice, the freshwater ice, haul them onto the deck, and then just melt them in huge copper vats.
Incredible.
Cook was thrilled. He recorded that they added 15 tons of fresh water to the Resolution on the 9th alone.
Melting the Antarctic ice into potable water, that must have saved them so much time and risk.
Oh, it was far safer and more expeditious than trying to find a safe landing and fill casks on some unpredictable rocky shore. Cook called it the most expeditious way of watering I ever met with.
I can imagine.
The astronomer, Wales, he logged that obtaining this water was of much more real value than gold. This efficiency kept them on mission.
And this relentless push south led to a truly historic moment in January 1773.
A huge moment. On Sunday, January 17th at 11:40 in the morning, the Resolution, with the Adventure following, crossed the imaginary line of 66 degrees 36 minutes south.
The Antarctic Circle.
The Antarctic Circle. The first recorded crossing by any vessel in human history.
What was the reaction on board?
You can feel the emotion in the logs. Lieutenant Cooper's logbook is so choked up he started writing that they crossed the circle, adding, "The first circumnavigation that ever did." But then his thought just trails off. He couldn't capture the enormity of it.
But that celebration was pretty short-lived. Almost immediately, they ran into the ultimate obstacle.
They hit the icy barrier. They could only get as far as 67 degrees 15 minutes south before they ran into a massive, impenetrable field of ice.
We need to distinguish here, right? There's different kinds of ice.
Yes. There's field ice, which are these large continuous sheets, and then there's packed ice, which is a jumble of broken fragments all pressed together. They were confronting both. A solid, vast expanse.
And Cook noted that it extended
far beyond the reach of our sight. He knew then that any continent here would be locked in permanent ice. There was no temperate paradise to be found.
And so, despite the pressure to keep going, he made the prudent call to turn back.
It was pure professionalism. His reasoning was that to persevere further would be, in his words, inconsistent with the safety of the sloops. He recognized the limits of his 18th century technology against the absolute force of the Antarctic.
And ironically, the very weather that forced them back also caused the first major fracture in the expedition.
The Antarctic is a place of these sudden, dense phenomena. On February 8th, around 49 degrees south, they were just swallowed by a thick Antarctic fog.
Just like that.
Just like that. Cook fired the ship's guns. He signaled to tack, trying to stay close to the Adventure, but he got no answer.
The fog was that thick.
So intense. And despite searching for 3 days, following their prearranged plan for just such a situation, the ships were utterly lost to each other.
The psychological impact of losing your only companion vessel, that far from any known port, it must have been immense.
A massive anxiety. It jeopardized the entire mission's redundancy, the safety net. The only comfort they had was that prearranged contingency plan.
If they separated.
They were to meet at Ship Cove in New Zealand. Cook had to put his trust in Captain Furneaux, that he would survive the next 2 months alone and make it to the rendezvous.
So Cook turns north after the separation, heading for New Zealand's South Island.
He arrives at Dusky Bay on March 23, 1773, and after the relentless, gray, freezing misery of the ice, This must have felt like landing on another planet.
A paradise.
That's exactly what Cook called it. He immediately logged it as a paradise. He found everything they needed: abundant wood, fresh water, seals, and ducks for protein. They used the time to repair the storm damage to the Resolution.
But the real emotional relief must have come a week later, when Resolution sailed into Ship Cove in Queen Charlotte Sound.
And there, against all the odds, was the Adventure waiting for them.
What a moment that must have been.
Furneaux had arrived 6 weeks early, but the relief was immediately tempered by a deep concern. Cook was dismayed by the condition of the Adventure's crew.
Scurvy.
Yes, he found them much afflicted with the scurvy. It really highlights the difference in command styles and the adherence to Cook's health regimen.
So Furneaux's command was less stringent.
Clearly, Lieutenant Burney's log on the Adventure confirmed their struggles. He noted their biscuit supply wasn't just moldy, it had been damaged and buried under coal since they left England. They had to throw a lot of it away.
The meticulous care Cook applied to every detail really paid dividends.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
But with the ships now reunited and patched up, Cook outlined the strategy for the next great sweep of the Pacific.
And the plan was massive.
Unprecedented. Sail east for nearly 2,000 miles, crossing the entire width of the Pacific. Then turn north and systematically sweep the tropics for any sign of land.
Effectively ruling out any substantial continent north of 40 degrees south.
Right. And only then would they return to New Zealand for another deeper push to the Antarctic.
But before that second push, they needed serious refreshment, which led them to the Society Islands, where Cook was already a very familiar face.
They visited Wahin, and the reunion was genuinely warm. The chief, Ori, he immediately recognized Cook and greeted him like an old friend.
And the trade was successful.
Very. The officers recorded great plenty of hogs coming from all quarters. This was absolutely crucial for rebuilding the crew's strength with fresh meat.
And it was here that they acquired new personnel, filling that important role that Tupaia had played on the first voyage as an interpreter.
2 men joined them. A young man named Omai, from Raiatea, was convinced by Captain Furneaux to join the Adventure for the journey back to England.
He would go on to become a huge celebrity in London.
A massive celebrity. And meanwhile, another young man named Hidehide, who the crew nicknamed Odidi, came aboard the Resolution to be Cook's interpreter.
And their presence was vital for navigating local customs.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of customs, there's a fascinating anecdote in the sources about a chief named Teofa and the ritual constraints he faced on the ship.
Tell me about it.
Cook tried to invite Teofa down into the great cabin, but the chief was very reluctant. He couldn't go.
Why not?
The custom dictated that a chief could not have anyone walk on the deck above where he himself was sleeping or sitting. And since the cabin was below the main deck...
Walking on the deck meant walking over the chief's head.
Exactly. So Cook, ever practical but always respectful, offered to immediately give orders forbidding anyone from walking on that specific part of the deck.
That's a huge concession to alter ship protocol for a guest.
It speaks volumes about his desire to maintain peace and respect these cultural boundaries. In the end, Teofa actually waived the ceremony and came down anyway, but the offer itself shows Cook constantly trying to negotiate these invisible social complexities.
So after all this effort, the replenishment, the diplomacy, they faced their final permanent separation near New Zealand in October 1773.
They were hit by strong gales off the Cook Strait. A common hazard. The logs describe a nasty high short sea with violent hard gales.
And the ships lost sight of each other.
They did. And Cook, perhaps anticipating that Furneaux was a bit less reliable, had taken some serious precautions this time.
The famous buried bottle.
That's the one. He prepared a detailed summary of his entire intended route, including all the possible future rendezvous points like Easter Island or Tahiti, and he sealed it in a bottle.
And he buried it.
He buried it under the root of a tree in the garden in the bottom of the cove, in such a manner that it must be found by any European who may put into the cove. It was a maritime insurance policy written in ink.
And it proved necessary. The Adventure left on its own.
Furneaux sailed via Cape Horn and reached England on July 14, 1774. A full year before Cook returned. He completed a circumnavigation, but he failed the mission's core objective.
Which left Cook and the Resolution truly alone.
Alone, facing the immense task of sweeping the Antarctic by themselves.
So the Resolution turned south once more, plunging back into the loneliness and the freezing weather of that fourth quadrant of the Southern Ocean. This was Cook's deep, solitary push into the unknown.
This really is the dramatic climax of the entire mission. Cook crossed the Antarctic Circle for the second time on December 21st, 1773.
And the conditions were just as bad, if not worse.
Cook noted the very worst conditions: a strong gale, thick fog, and sleet. And the sheer engineering difficulty of just keeping a wooden ship functional in these temperatures is something we often overlook.
What does that look like day to day for a sailor on deck?
It's brutal. The freezing spray meant the rigging was constantly loaded with ice. The sails became, in his words, like board or plates of metal.
So you can't furl them or adjust them.
Imagine trying to handle a sail that is turned into a rigid sheet of canvas and ice. And what's more, the pulleys, the shivers in the blocks, they were often frozen solid.
So you couldn't even raise or lower the sails.
Getting a topsail up or down could take hours of chipping ice, hammering the blocks, and just pure, brute physical exertion in a freezing gale. It was a constant battle against the elements, trying to weld the ship into one solid block.
And this relentless freezing darkness continued right through the Christmas season.
The psychological toll must have been immense. Cook, ever the stoic, he recorded on December 24th that under these circumstances, it would be natural for any commander to just give up and turn north.
Did they celebrate Christmas at all?
It seems not. Most of the logbooks, including Cook's, contain virtually no mention of Christmas Day. Only George Forster made a brief note. The sheer physical struggle just overshadowed any tradition.
But that perseverance, that decision to keep pushing further east and south than anyone had ever gone, it led to the ultimate achievement of the voyage.
It did. The achievement of furthest south. On January 30th, 1774, Cook reached 71 degrees 10 minutes south latitude at 106 degrees 54 west longitude.
One of the great milestones in maritime history.
And he was so close to land without knowing it. Only about 120 miles from the actual Antarctic landmass, though we couldn't see it through the ice.
What did it look like at the very edge of the navigable world?
It must have been otherworldly. Cook described the horizon as being illuminated by the rays of light which were reflected from the ice, this spectral, shimmering light.
Like an ice blink.
A massive one. They counted 97 enormous ice formations, or ice hills, that resembled a ridge of mountains rising one above another. And beyond a narrow belt of broken ice, they saw it.
The final barrier?
A solid ice in one continued compact body that stretched as far as the eye could see.
And this was the moment. This confirmed for him that the dream of a temperate southern continent was over.
Absolutely. The intellectual payoff of the entire voyage happened right there. Cook concluded that the ice either extended quite to the pole or perhaps joins to some land, but that land, if it existed, was frozen and worthless.
And any further attempts
would be a dangerous and rash enterprise. Cook had done it. He had disproved the theories of Dalrymple and generations of cartographers. The search was over.
So he turns north to escape the cold.
Right. He resolves to spend the winter in the tropics, and on his way north, he begins to systematically sweep these massive empty spaces of the Pacific.
He searched for the legendary lands of Juan Fernandez, which he didn't find, but he did find Easter Island.
He found it, but his reaction is one of profound anticlimax. He's not thinking about the statues, he's thinking about naval resources, water, wood, timber for masts.
But Easter Island had none of that.
He noted its sparse resources, writing that nature has hardly provided it with anything fit for man to eat or drink. His final, almost weary conclusion was that no nation will ever contend for the honor of the discovery of Easter Island. It offered nothing of strategic value to the Navy.
It sounds like his priority had completely shifted to practical naval necessity, and that focus became really evident again when he discovered New Caledonia.
This led to the famous philosophers' controversy with the Forsters.
What happened?
While charting this new island, Cook noticed these tall, strange objects. The Forsters, whom Cook somewhat dismissively called the philosophers, they insisted that these objects were stone pillars.
Remnants of some lost civilization.
That was their thinking. It fit their theoretical ideas. But Cook was a practical observer.
And they were trees.
Cook recorded with a clear touch of exasperation that upon closer inspection, everyone were now satisfied they were trees, except our philosophers.
What kind of trees were they?
They were the magnificent Araucaria columnaris, now known as the Cook pine. And Cook, ever mindful of the Navy's needs, immediately recognized their tall, straight trunks as being perfect for ships' masts.
And he found another excellent source for masts shortly after that.
Yes. On October 10th, 1774, he discovered an uninhabited island, which he named Norfolk Isle. And again, he noted the abundance of trees that were ideal for masts. He was essentially mapping the future resources of the British Empire in the Pacific.
Having completed this massive sweep and confirmed the non-existence of a major Pacific continent in those latitudes, he finally heads for home.
He sails toward New Zealand to prepare for the final leg of the journey.
Turning east again in late 1774, Cook begins that long, final circumnavigation of the globe, crossing the South Atlantic. And this journey brings them to Terra del Fuego near Cape Horn, right in time for Christmas.
They anchored in a place they named Christmas Sound, and Cook was determined to ensure a proper meal after the rigors of last year.
So they went hunting.
They took advantage of the rich wildlife. On Christmas Eve, Cook's own party shot 62 geese, and Pickersgill's party shot another 14.
86 geese, that's a feast.
Enough for the whole ship for the approaching festival. The menu was logged: roast and boiled geese, goose pies, and scie. A real taste of home.
But this momentary comfort was tempered by tragedy just days before.
Yes, a Marine, William Wedgebrough, disappeared during the night of the 22nd. Lieutenant Cooper's log suggests he likely fell overboard on his way to the head, having been seen very much in liquor at 12 o'clock.
A stark reminder of the constant dangers of life at sea.
Absolutely. The immense effort to provide a celebratory meal contrasted so sharply with the raw, immediate dangers of just being on the ship.
And while they were there, Cook had a memorable encounter with the native population.
He met the local people, the Fuegians, likely the Osh people. And his description is, well, typically 18th century and not very empathetic. He called them a little ugly, half-starved, beardless race, and noted they were almost naked.
What did they wear?
They relied on sealskin clothing, and were equipped with bows, arrows, and bone harpoons for marine hunting.
So I take it they weren't invited to the Christmas dinner.
They were certainly present on the day, but Cook explicitly noted that they retired before the big meal. He mused that no one invited them, possibly because, and I'm quoting his journal, their dirty persons and the stench they carried about them was enough to spoil any man's appetite.
What was the source of the smell?
He attributed the most intolerable odor to train oil, that's seal or whale oil, which the natives used to waterproof their skin and insulate themselves from the intense cold.
The final geographical discoveries of the voyage came in January 1775 as they sailed further east into the desolate South Atlantic.
He continued his meticulous search. He surveyed South Georgia, an island he dismissed almost immediately.
What did he think of it?
He described it as savage and horrible, noting that nothing grew there, not even big enough to make a toothpick.
But it was teeming with wildlife.
Yes, it was the haunt of massive numbers of sea lions, seals, and penguins. A fact that later feeling fleets would exploit to a devastating degree, but a resource that Cook completely missed or disregarded.
He also found a new volcanic archipelago.
Yes, the South Sandwich Islands. On February 4th, 1775, they sailed past this chain of islands, often shrouded in fog and snow. And this area yielded one final, psychologically alarming phenomenon.
The Milkish Sea.
The Milkish Sea. On the night of February 4th, the water they were sailing through suddenly turned white as milk. An extraordinary, and for them, very frightening occurrence.
Do we know what causes that?
It's a rare biological phenomenon, usually attributed to vast fields of bioluminescent plankton. But to 18th century sailors, it was terrifying.
What did they think it was?
It alarmed Lieutenant Clerk, the officer on watch, so much that he tacked the ship instantly, because he feared they were sailing directly into some unknown shallow bank or a strange reef. They thought they were about to run aground in the middle of the ocean.
So after resolving the mystery of the white water, Cook had officially run out of sea to search.
His work was complete. He determined that Bouvet's earlier sighting of Cape Circumcision, which he had searched for so extensively, must have just been an ice island that had since drifted away and melted.
So with the myth of the Great Southern Continent fully invalidated, at least in all the temperate and subantarctic latitudes, the Resolution headed for home.
Yes. They arrived at Plymouth on July 29, 1775, completing a 3-year circumnavigation. The voyage was an overwhelming success.
It achieved its primary scientific goal.
And crucially, it validated Kendall's marine chronometer as a truly reliable navigational tool. That achievement alone was monumental. It proved that longitude could now be accurately calculated on long voyages.
And the recognition for Cook was immediate and frankly well-deserved.
He was elevated to the status of a national hero. On August 9, 1775, King George III personally raised James Cook to the rank of captain.
His maps were that good.
So accurate, his methods so thorough, that a later French explorer, La Pérouse, who followed in his wake, famously complained that Cook had left nothing for his successors to do but praise him.
What an incredible 3-year journey. Pushing exploration further south than anyone had ever dared, and settling one of history's great geographical arguments. The scope of this second voyage really did cement Cook's place as one of the greatest navigators in history.
Absolutely. He defined the limits of the Antarctic, he established new standards for maritime health, and he validated the navigational tools that would shape the future. After such grueling, groundbreaking work, it might seem natural for him to finally retire.
He'd secured his promotion, he had a pension waiting at Greenwich Hospital.
But history rarely allows great men to retire quietly. The Admiralty had a new, irresistible mission waiting for him.
One that involved solving another centuries-old puzzle.
The Northwest Passage.
So the stage was already set for Cook's third and final chapter.
His next command involved heading north to the Arctic to search for that passage from the Pacific side. And, conveniently, it was accompanied by the task of returning Omai, the young man from the adventure, back to the Society Islands.
An entirely new, strategically vital mission awaited him. So the new question wasn't about the cold of the South, but the ice of the North. What new dangers and what new peoples did Cook face as he sailed toward the Bering Strait and into the final, fateful confrontation with the ice?
That incredible story of ambition and tragedy is what we'll tackle next time on The Deep Dive.